This is Jordan Philbeck.
And Mandy Tomasi.
And we couldn't be more excited for you to join us for the Girls Off the Grid podcast show.
We realized there's a lot of women out there, just like we were, just existing. So we discovered how to laugh through the tough seasons of life and begin to live life on our terms.
And that is what living off the grid is all about.
Our podcast was built so you can have a girlfriend by your side as you navigate through this crazy thing called life. It's real talk, it's girl talk.
Absolutely. Let's talk life, love, and all the things that make us human. Let's do life off the grid.
Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Girls Off the Grid. My name is Mandy Tomasi.
And I'm Jordan Philbeck.
And our curious question, do you or do you know of someone whom struggles?
Ooh.
I mean, we've got all kinds of struggles every single day.
We do. Every single day.
Every single day.
Me, hand went up. Which topic are we struggling with?
I know.
Seriously.
Yes. And that's what I find to be so comforting, though, is that you're going through something and you know there's probably a million other people going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
And I find that just having that community of just even like kind of bringing it up, and a lot of people were like, no, that doesn't concern me. Mm-hmm. That's not one of my issues. Another girl's like, oh my gosh, me.
Totally.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. You deal with the same thing. And you're like, yeah, like, oh gosh, let's talk about it.
Exactly what you said. It's crazy how when you just not lower your expectation, but you kind of pull the veil off and you don't worry about what anybody thinks of whatever you're struggling with, and you just share your journey, share your experience, whatever that might be, with someone else or a community of people. You're not alone, because we all have something. We all have a story that can impact one another. And it's speaking of that, this is kind of the segue into our second part series of talking about dyslexia. But I want it to relate for anybody, and our struggle with it, I feel one of the things I've taken away from it over the last 5 years would be exactly that, is the advice to don't hide it. If you know somebody that's struggling with dyslexia, or you're wondering if your child is or a friend is, it's crazy how many people don't know that they are, even later on in life. And when they figure it out, it's this aha moment of, okay, now I can help somebody else find out sooner than I did.
That's true. Gosh, how empowering is that, even for you?
Or your kids, or if you don't have kids yet. I honestly would tell you, before I had kids, I didn't know what it was. I'd heard about it. I even taught high school, and I remember having kids that would struggle with writing assignments. And at this time I was a computer teacher, and we would have these writing assignments, and they would try to one of the assignments was to fill out a check. And I'll never forget learning how to fill out a check, because it was a business computer class. And one of the students really struggled with it. And I thought, how can you be struggling at that level when you're in high school and you're writing like a 4th or 5th grader? And now reflecting back on it, I can see that I didn't notice what he was struggling with, which is what I'm now seeing with Hayden.
Right.
So it's earlier identification is something that I am so thankful for. And our teachers I'm so thankful that I have people around my kids that are able to say, hey, I think something's not right. So that's been a positive. But I do want to come off of last week when we were talking about the modification. So that was our next step in the process, is going, okay, we know we're struggling. We don't have enough in the state of Oklahoma to really pinpoint exactly if it's dyslexia, but here are the modifications we can put in place. And so some of those that we have in place would be being pulled out of the classroom to have a smaller setting. For a short period of time, 30, 40 minutes, I believe, around math and reading.
And has that been helpful for Hayden?
Very helpful. And I'll tell you, though, the emotional toll of that was the hardest part.
I can see.
For the first 2 years, I think it was definitely a confidence hit, because it's like something's wrong with me. So I'm being pulled out.
You felt like there was a label on something that was out of their control. But
Totally.
They didn't even realize that there was even an issue, and now they felt like there was something on them.
Right.
I can see that.
And looking back, I wish that I'd presented him with it a little bit differently, not that it was just tutoring, because then it's like, well, why aren't more kids getting tutored? It was truly for, hey, here's a learning style. Here's how we learn, and this is going to help you. This is going to be special for you and maybe one or two other kids, and that it's not taboo to be pulled out. If it's for gifted and talented, if it's speech therapy, whatever it might be, counseling in school. Kids are moving about a lot, and I didn't realize that before. I thought, oh my gosh, it's just going to be him. When in actuality, there's a lot of movement in classrooms. And so I hope that you'll know that with your child, or somebody if they're struggling, or their son or daughter struggling. I'll tell you, me talking about it has brought about so many good friends of mine that are saying, oh my gosh, maybe this is what's going on with my daughter or with my son, or maybe this is why she's crying, maybe this is why sight words aren't being picked up, maybe this is why the writing style, because a lot of times it can be dysgraphia, or it can just be a dyslexic that is truly just struggling to take the letter from their mind to the paper, or from one text to the next. So a lot of times it may not even be dyslexia, it may be something different. But the modifications that we put in place are helping us on that journey. So I do suggest getting all that you can. If it's shortened assignments, tests, being pulled out, quiet environment. I think the most impactful thing that we've put in place for him in the school would be audio options.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And that is something that most schools have an opportunity.
Well, that seems remarkably helpful.
Yes. So to hear it.
Sure.
And look at the text, so that audio to text is really helpful. Obviously, I think most kids probably would enjoy that, but for him, it's crucial. The identification of the word, because he's got to hear it and make sense of whatever it is on his paper. Because looking at the word to you and I is not looking at the word for someone that does struggle with that. And it's hard to understand that and grasp that.
Especially if you're not struggling with it. I think that just that level of sensitivity of what the other individual is going through. And I find that I've found just even knowing someone, but definitely with your child, you're doing whatever you can to try to get in their proverbial shoes, if you will. Just like how do they see things? How do they perceive them? What can I do to assist them to not have the stress or struggles, going through their day to day?
Oh, so true. I was in all the couple of years of really trying to take a day of the week and spend a little bit of time learning about it has been eye-opening. I found an image, I think I sent it to you last week maybe, and it was just a blurred image of what is a dyslexic seeing.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, and look, it makes me I'm so proud of all that he's accomplished, versus extremely worried about where we're at, and maybe the test scores are not lining up to the 4th grade of where he's at. Because if you look at that image for 10 seconds, it's exhaustive. You just realize what battle they're up against. It is not just the battle that we have with all of our kids of getting up in the morning and getting to school on time and doing well in school. It is a struggle. Every step of the way is a struggle. Every reading assignment, every math assignment, it's a struggle. So it made me have more empathy with that. But I do want to share a couple things that we did outside of the school that might be an option for you, depending on where you live. We found that we didn't have enough of those resources available in school for him, so we don't have the tools and the tactical things that he can do as far as a true program, a take flight program, or whatever that might be. We don't have that. So
now, are there some schools that actually do
Yes.
that specialize in that, or they have those programs set in place?
Yes.
Do you know what those programs are called? Do they know what would someone be able to call, like calling a school and saying, "Hello, do you happen to have this specific program in your school?"
I think it depends on the state.
Okay.
Actually, your cousin has been super helpful for Hayden. He does a take flight virtual option with her right now. So I know Texas is big on that. I think Kansas offers it in some schools, but everywhere there are a lot of programs.
Okay, good.
But I would say one of the things I did as this crazy mom that was on this mission to find resources, I went to Facebook and I just searched dyslexia groups, support groups, therapy, all kinds of words. I mean, just whatever you can come up with, and put your state in there. And I'm involved in 5 or 6 different groups that have been fantastic for sharing apps that work, Epic Reading that works really well for Hayden, and resources. But we found that Oklahoma didn't really have that much. So the things that we did eye therapy, because at first we thought, okay, it's just his eyes. His eyes need to strengthen, and when his eyes strengthen, we'll understand how to read better. So that was a rabbit hole we went down. And I don't want to say that it wasn't successful, because at the end of the day, how can working on something be a total loss? I do think he took a lot from that. But that was a step in the process to say, okay, maybe this is the issue, versus going straight to outside testing. So it may be something you could avoid. But psychology, we went to a psychologist and they did a kind of a psychiatric review, really. We saw 2 people. We were able to narrow it down, and both were the first day we were working with one of the psychologists, she came out, she goes, I know exactly what it is. He's dyslexic. And I was like, it's like after 2-3 years of this struggle bus of, is it or is it not? Is it just a reading issue? Is it a delay? Is it in me beating myself up going, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What am I not seeing as a mom? And putting him through the ringer. I think one of the hardest things for me is looking back at just taking him to all the testing and taking him to eye therapy and taking him to different tutors and realizing that we did tutoring from pre-K until today. We've always done tutoring. And we were not seeing growth in pre-K, first and second. Of course, there was that natural maturity level that was growing,
right.
But it was we were running in circles because what we were doing is offering a normal tutor for an average student, whereas his learning style was over here. So I needed a specialist in a certain area. And so through those steps, in the Dyslexia Center of Tulsa, if you're in Tulsa, was a great step for us. Helped him in different areas. I think she focuses more on the therapy side, and was able to test him and see deficiencies that we were able to hone in on, so that was fantastic. And then moving into working with a reading specialist, and y'all, the key is find somebody that can do it with you virtually. So for me, I didn't have anybody here, but I thought, why didn't I think earlier of just finding someone that was in Texas or somebody that was somewhere else that was excelling and do this virtual option? So we are doing that currently. We're doing it once a week. We were doing it twice a week, and I decided to do reading therapy once a week and then once a week with Stacy. So that's been fantastic. We're seeing steps and strides. But I have learned that the confidence for me, the confidence for him is in the acceptance stage. We accept it, and we've got to do what we can to help you be successful. It's not the comparison thing. We joked about lowering your expectations.
So you're never disappointed.
Yes, you're not disappointed, but you have to change your expectations for each kid. You know, we're all different humans, and for him, he excels in different ways. And so I can build his confidence with areas that he's interested. And then it's like, tap into what you're good at and forget about the rest. So it's that theory that just rings true for him too. And I was reading a stat in one of the groups that I'm in, said 85% of parents report that children feel embarrassed by the dyslexia. And if I could give you one piece of advice, meet your kid where they're at quickly and be proud of where they're at. Appreciate what they're going through. So having that empathy, not the sympathy side, which I struggled with. And then building their confidence in the areas that they're interested in. Because when they build confidence in, for example, Hayden, he loves farming, he loves hunting, he loves all these things. So if we just tap into that and we write all of our papers and that around that topic, it's a lot easier than writing it around doing a biography, on some person. It's like we can't get them to focus. So tapping into their interests. And the last thing I wanted to mention today is a couple tips that have helped us. So if you're looking for things, maybe you've identified it, maybe you're working on that process, and things you can put in place at home that will help your kid no matter what, if they're struggling with reading and they're not dyslexic, and it's just an area of concern. So these are the things we're doing. Small chunks. We don't ever sit down and work for 4 or 5 hours. It just doesn't work. We spend more time fighting than we do getting anything accomplished. So small chunks of time and setting a limitation and setting a time frame. So for him, he works really well to know, okay, how long am I going to be working on this task? Versus we've got 40 problems to do, we're not getting up till we're done. That mentality.
That's true. That could be exhausting even before he gets started.
Oh,
he feels defeated.
He's defeated before it starts. He's upset before it starts. And the only thing he can focus on is the fact that it's going to take forever because the reading is going to exhaust him. So we do small chunks. We'll do 10, 15 minutes, and then we take a break. Repetition over and over and over. One of the psychologists we met with said, I want you to remember, Jordan, if I'm teaching you a skill, you may pick it up the first time. If I'm teaching a dyslexic a skill, they need it 8 times. So 1 to 8, that's the difference. Which seems crazy to me, but for us, it's been very, very true. Now, not in all areas. We're talking about reading. So these kids are brilliant. Think about Albert Einstein, that was a dyslexic genius human being. Well, he was a genius in his area. we didn't ever really know the other areas of his life that he struggled in. So tapping in, repetition, talk in terms of their curiosity. So make them the priority. What is it they're interested in? What makes them happy? And then as far as reading and writing, we highlight a lot. We do color chunking a lot. We always ask our teachers if we can do bullet point papers over paragraphs. So that's really, really helpful for him to lay it out and see the sequence versus getting lost in the paragraph because the words might be moving. Music and audiobooks really help him. I don't do well if I have music in my ears when I'm trying to read. He does really well with that. So it just depends on how your student feels most successful. If my kids are running around the house, he feels overwhelmed. He kind of needs the space to just be a little bit more. He'll always ask, can we go to my room? He'll want to hear music, but the movement all around him, it's a distraction. So set them up for success with where you place them in the house, repetition in small things, celebrate the small wins. Every time he does something right, we celebrate it. He may do 10 things wrong on his paper, but the one thing he did right, that's what we're going to hone in on. So, those are some of my tips. But one other thing I did want to mention is, this is a question I get asked often. We were playing sports one time, I think this was about a month ago, we were at the gym. He mixed up his left and rights. So of course, I go to study, and is this true that dyslexics get their left and rights mixed up often? And it is true. So have more grace. I was so frustrated, like, why did you do that with your left hand? You're right. They get them mixed up all the time. So it's just realizing that maybe our parenting style needs to be tweaked to meet them where they're at. My hope for you is that you'll see it as a gift, as a superpower, and go along the journey with us. So yeah, but we hope this helps. I hope this next step we'll share more as we kind of unfold our journey.
Well, that's what I think what I love so much about this, Jordan, is that you are breaking it down in a 3-part series. Just trying to, again, identifying some things that will help, and then also some resources, again, things we're going to be discussing in part 3, because this is such a huge part of not only of our lives, it's our world, it's the people that we love, and if we can share just a little bit of what we have found along the way, and it helps one person, I think that we've done our job.
Absolutely. And you're not alone.
Yes.
It feels so good to know. It's not that you ever want someone else to struggle.
Correct.
But you want to show that you're real, you're raw, we're all going through something. And when you have your kids see that they're not alone,
yes, it
is so empowering. It is like, oh, this is not taboo. This is just not the normal. This is a different way.
I love it. No, I love the power in the vulnerability, because there's so many things in life that we just have, even for myself, and I just have so much pride that I don't want anyone to know. So I just won't ever share. But what I found is that when I do share, how not only fulfilled I am, but just the people in droves that come and say, my goodness, I cannot believe you said that. Thank you so much. I'm not alone. I'm like, oh, why didn't I say that sooner?
Exactly. Yeah. And you do a great job with that.
Oh gosh. Well,
you
thank
do.
you.
You
thank
do.
You.
You do. But it's all about growing in confidence, and then you grow and you become more humble about it. And then it's, you share, and people share with you, and it's just a better journey.
I love it.
Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Okay, for more information, we will be bringing another podcast soon. This is part 2, so if you missed part 1, go back and catch that. I hope that some of those tips will help you. But you can catch us at the OTG Life.
Yes, and you can catch us at the OTG Life. We also have a private Facebook community with Girls Off the Grid, so we're over there always sharing and uplifting and empowering one another.
Yes.
And of course, always our website to pick up any of our fun gear. You'll notice even Jordan's looks one way and mine looks the other. Mine's actually written backward, so it's now visible, and I can read it when I'm looking at myself in the reflection. And Jordan's line is our Empower line, and it's actually intended for the person reading it. So please visit us at www.otgwarrior.com, and we invite you just to participate, have a good time, join our community, and we can't wait to see you there.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.